Joyce Beverly Hansen was born August 13, 1925 in Bellingham, Washington. She was the 14th child of Lawrence and Annie Hansen. Joyce's parents immigrated separately from Denmark in 1888. Lawrence, known as Louis, at age 17 from Bornholm Island, Annie Sorensen at age 6 with her family from Tysted. They each landed in New York, then traveled west, eventually arriving in Sherburne, Minnesota, where they met, were married in 1899, and started a family. In 1913, they moved west to homestead in Sand Rock near Van Hook, North Dakota, with her 9 children, and then proceeded to add 4 more. Together with his first son-in-law, Louis built most of the homes, churches, and schoolhouses in that community. A builder and not a farmer, he eventually built out the market in that small rural community, and they needed a new way to support themselves. Louis then traveled to the West Coast in 1924, ending up in Bellingham, Washington, with a bank facilities job at First National Bank of Bellingham with Victor Roeder, bank president and son of one of the city's founders. Some 6 months later, Annie bundled up all the younger children, taking them on the train to Bellingham, where Louis secured a home for them. This was where Joyce was born, a loving home where her parents only spoke English with the children and in the community, but then spoke Danish with each other and enjoyed many Danish foods and traditions. Mother Annie wasn't planning on a 14th child. When, at age 42, she was pregnant with Joyce, doctors cut her open expecting to find a tumor. Instead, it was Joyce. They sewed Annie back up and she delivered a healthy miracle baby and then, unfortunately, suffered a stroke. Here, Joyce describes some of her childhood.
Each of us sees, hears, understands, learns from our own frame of reference. Although I was the 14th child in the family, not once did I ever feel unloved or unwanted. Not only did I have a mother and father who loved me, but also I had a lot of brothers and sisters who loved and cared for me. Mom had a stroke when she was pregnant with me, and a stroke again when I was 5 years old. Naturally, the family was concerned about her health, but I was never fearful because I knew that no matter what happened, my sister Mary would always take care of me, and she did. She bought my clothes, she gave me an allowance, probably the only one in the family who ever had an allowance. She took me to the doctor and to the dentist. She bought my shoes. Mary did everything that was needed to be done for me. I grew up in the Depression times, but it was years later before I realized that we were actually poor. Somehow, my dad always made the paycheck last. I don't remember ever hearing him say, "We can't buy whatever until payday." We didn't live any differently the day before payday than we did the day after payday. My mom had a lot of sayings that she lived by. One of her sayings was, "Where there is heart room, there is house room," and she proved that over and over again. Although our house was filled to capacity, when my brother's friend's parents died, Mom opened her heart and home, and the friend lived with us until he graduated from high school. When my niece wanted more in life than a North Dakota farming community could offer, Mom opened her heart and home, and my niece lived with us until she later married. It never occurred to me that anything would ever happen to my dad. But my last year in school in Bellingham, Dad had a heart attack and died within a month. My brother Charles came to the rescue and built a house in Kelso for Mom, where she lived until she was no longer able to care for herself. I moved to Kelso, got a job, and lived with Mom until I was married.
2018, Joyce had a chance to revisit some of her early memorable locations in Bellingham. The family home on Newell Street, their old living room floor still with the H installed by her father for Happy Hansen Home, her middle school now rebuilt to the same look as it had in the 30s, Bellingham High School, the Northwest Holiness Association Bible Camp in Ferndale where Joyce, mother and siblings camped and cooked in tents each summer of her youth, the Roeder Mansion where Louie's employer lived. Victor Roeder also employed and housed two of Joyce's sisters here and a niece, and Louie's grave near Ferndale. After graduating high school, she lived with Sister Ann and her husband in their Tacoma parsonage, where Joyce served as secretary to the shipyard superintendent and played piano on a Christian radio station, and at this recital, music became a lifelong passion. Several years later, she moved to Kelso to care for her mother and work as a legal secretary. It was there that she met and married this good-looking veteran, Lyle Eyer. They were married on September 4th, 1948, in a beautiful outdoor wedding at the home of the bride's brother, Charles Hansen. Officiating were Joyce's brother and brother-in-law. Mixed among the many pleasant memories was one where Joyce's brothers had to break up a fight between neighbors next door after the wedding. Afterwards, they took a honeymoon trip to Banff, where they enjoyed Lake Louise, Radium Hot Springs, and the wilds of British Columbia. When they returned, they lived with Lyle's mother for a couple years while they built a new house. They bought 4 acres in Kelso's Butler Acres, platted and sold 20 lots in the new Eyer addition, and then built a new block home from the proceeds on their favorite view lot. In 1950, they had their first child, Lawrence William, named for his 2 grandfathers. In 1952, Mark Stephen was born, and 10 years later they had a girl, Camille Janine. The next years were family and community times. The kids could walk to their schools, and Lyle and Joyce raised them in the Kelso Methodist Church. Joyce helped design and build their home while raising their first child. They lived and raised their 3 children in this home for 50 years. There were many family get-togethers. Here with the Eyer Baker McDonalds in the 50s at the annual 4th of July get-together, and with their Hansen brothers and sisters in the 70s, with parents and sisters inserted. Joyce was active with the family, school, and church activities during those early years, only periodically working as a legal secretary for extra family income. One side benefit was her family's use of her employer's Long Beach cabin 2 weeks each summer. Later, they bought and improved their own cabin at Ocean Park. When the children were older, she went back to work full-time, first as secretary for family court, later as a probation officer, and finally as chief probation officer for Cowlitz County. During this time, she worked closely with the courts, substance abuse treatment centers, and other community services. She was able to travel to conferences around the state and nation to which Lyle accompanied her. She joined Toastmasters, walked a mile to work most days, and became an accomplished painter. Here are some favorites. She also joined a Bible study and PEO groups, the members of which became lifelong friends. She and Lyle became regulars each winter at a favorite spot in Maui, where they often hosted their kids and grandkids. When she retired, they traveled more with family and friends and played some golf. She organized and drove for senior outings at the church, and they both volunteered at the Fish Food Bank program. She would often play piano, and Lyle would sing at home and at church. In 1998, they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary with family and friends. When they could no longer keep up the family home, they moved to Krista Shores in Silverdale near their kids and grandkids. There she made new friends, joined the local PEO group, invited dozens of new Krista residents in for her famous apple pie, played piano for Krista events, and took up water painting. 6 times a year she changed the color scheme of her apartment with her paintings, pillows, and flowers. She also regularly organized birthday parties for their kids, their spouses, and grandkids, and sent many hand-painted cards. Here she is, surrounded by family at her 90th birthday party. And near that time, here she is skydiving at the iFly Indoor Skydiving Center with nephew Don Hansen and family. What a full life Joyce lived. She was often described as kind, elegant, and loving. And is remembered as a wonderful wife, mother, grandmother, aunt, and friend.